Hello, everyone. My name is Stephanie Willis. Welcome to the FundReady ecosystem. I'm the founder of FundReady, and I help nonprofits to become grant ready. But I also focus on the person, the leadership of the nonprofit. So I help you become grant ready from the inside out, not just from an organizational standpoint, but from a leadership standpoint. So we do this through strategic planning. We do this through organizational capacity, and we do this inner work that's going to help make everything stick, because that's really what's important. We can't expect for change to happen outside of us if there's a corresponding change that needs to take place within us. So the blockages that we experience, especially when we're going after money, is usually internal. So I'm also, on that note, and to that point, I'm also the author of Reboot, Organizational Transformation for Nonprofits, and you can find that on Amazon. But today I really want to talk about something. This would be new for me, merging these two projects together, merging the wisdom of grant writing, the wisdom of um, working in Fortune 500 companies, thinking like a funder, and bringing in that a psychological component. I'm going to call it that for now. I think that's the safe word. Is that there's a psychological, spiritual component that blends everything all together, because we are that. We are a psychological body. We have a psyche. We have a spirit body. And then we have this physical body where we're experiencing what is happening in our um, psychological realm and in that spirit realm. So this is the first time that I've actually myself felt safe enough. It's a weird word to use in this moment, but truly felt like I could bridge um, that gap and show the connection without fear of how people are going to receive it, because it just is what it is. And it's the truth that's hiding beneath the insufficient funding that a lot of nonprofits are experiencing. So, what I want to say to that is that funding isn't about funding, right? The problem starts somewhere else, it starts within. And I want to make that very clear and to give you some options to how you can address that. So, that's what we're going to talk about here today with this presentation. And so, this FundReady, this ecosystem is definitely for the nonprofit that is boots on the ground in the community, serving, the community, helping the people, meeting the need and standing in the gap where on one side you have what the person can do or where they find challenge, and what our systems have offered and where they aren't meeting the needs of the people, right? So some of you might be filling the gaps for the educational system. Some of you may be filling the gaps for the welfare system and the state programs where individuals and families, children are falling through the cracks because they don't fit within the parameters of whatever those terms and conditions are that would allow them to receive those services. Sometimes they just don't fit those parameters. And a lot of you nonprofits are filling those gaps. There's some great needs in the community. FundReady is for you because you have this wonderful presence and you have products and services and programs that are in place to help the community, but you just maybe don't have enough funding, or you're in a cycle of financial survival, or there's just financial crises that make this um, that maybe interferes with the flow, the workflow, or hinders the impact and or the expansion or outreach, keeping you from having a greater impact. So I know for the grant writer side of this, a lot of nonprofits have a really tough time with grant writing because they don't understand it and they don't have time to learn it, because it seems like it's a lot more confusing than it really is. Actually, it's not that hard. What we need to learn how to do is how to frame our work, how to position ourselves to be able to apply for funding in every direction, but that comes with organizational capacity and grant readiness. Grant readiness, I want to say this, it's not just about getting the grant or preparing to get the grant. It is really funding readiness. It's like if you have a business plan, you've got a plan for how you're going to do business. You've got a operational strategy. You have a marketing strategy. That will be your outreach. You have a human resource strategy, how you resource your programs and your organization. You have programs, and therefore you have program strategies, implementation strategies. Well, alongside of all those strategies, you must have a budget that lines up with the need. Like, it lines up with the project, it lines up with the human capital, it lines up with the materials that you need, the services that you need to operate, the expenses that you need to cover. So you've got to have a clear or clearly defined budget that speaks to all of those strategies. And what happens when we apply for grants, if they can't see all of the things that they need to see, this is where we think like a funder. If they don't see it in the language that they understand, then they just assume that you're not ready to be funded. That's just the cleanest way to say it. So you've submitted the applications, you've hired a grant writer, or you have a resident grant writer, or you have someone on staff that's taking time away from their other duties to write for grants. You've showed up, you believe in your mission, and you're doing everything that you can to make sure that your organization can thrive and that you can continue doing what you set out to do. But that funding still isn't coming in from those grants. You've got other ways that you have to create funding for your organization, but grants are a wonderful resource. And there are lots of institutions, corporations, and other and foundations that are seeking to fund whatever it is that that you're doing, whatever you're driving. They're ready to fund it. We need to make sure that we have a clarity of mind, clarity in the mission, clarity in the proposal and the presentation of who we are, what we do, who we serve, and how much it costs, as well as the impact that we're having, or the impact that we expect to have when we look long range. Those are the things that funders are looking for. They're looking for that language and for it to be clear, right? So that they feel confident investing in your organization. So I read an article, it was probably 2 or 3 days ago, in the Chronicle of Philanthropy. That's one of my favorite resources for nonprofit, information. What is going on in the 501c3 world? The Chronicles always brings it. They bring great resources, great information. But I saw an article, and there was a survey conducted of 350 nonprofit organizations and the foundation leaders. Well, 350 nonprofit organizations and foundation leaders across the country. Those are two separate things. So what I saw immediately, the article spoke about the funder nonprofit disconnect. So only 1/3, that's 1 out of every 3 nonprofit leaders, actually feel that their challenges are truly understood by the funders. So we see right here, we have a language barrier. And then only 1 out of 3 of every nonprofit leaders are right now today, because this article is current, reading the current landscape over the last, say, 12 months. They're worried that they might have to cease operations or operate at a diminished capacity between now and the next 5 years, because the long range view of the funding that they have relied on, that they once relied on, especially government funding, has diminished or has come to a full stop. And so the 1 out of 3 is that's if you look at that, 1/3 of nonprofit leaders feel like they're not seen. That's what that says to me. And therefore, they may cease to exist, because if they're not seen and they're not being resourced, their financial needs are not being met, then that means that they can't meet the needs of the community. So after, putting in so much hard work and sacrifice, and even employing people, there are jobs that are hinged upon the success of these nonprofit organizations. They're all at risk. So the funding problem, we look at this is a worldwide funding problem, right? But the funding isn't about the funding itself. It isn't about the application process. It's not fully about just that nonprofits are not being seen. It's true that they're not being seen, but we have to get to the reason why. And the reason really starts with the vision holder, the nonprofit leader, the one who holds the pen, who shapes the organization, the one who hires the people, the one who develops the programs. It could be, we're looking at the leadership, the leadership board, and how are we embodying the mission um, as leaders, as leaders. So for myself, this is what I can say, because I've sat on every side of the table. I have been and still am an entrepreneur, right? I've had to fund my own vision. I've had to walk through the halls of not being seen for various reasons, or applying for funding and not getting the sufficiency, not getting sufficient funding to really operate at the capacity that would have allowed my business to be the success that it could have been at that time. It's not that all of that's gone away. I'm just saying, in the humble beginnings of entrepreneurship, I walk that path and I really do understand it. And so there's this other side of me as well. So as a spiritual coach, I've sat with so many people in their most vulnerable moments, in their most vulnerable heart spaces, listening to and hearing where they feel constricted, where they feel invisible, including myself. I walked this journey out for myself, with myself, and by myself, to get these nuggets and this wisdom that I'm sharing with you right now, to be able to bridge it all together, because it translates. What's going on in our minds and in our hearts is permeating through our businesses, through our business ventures, through our organizations, and whatever it is that we're bringing forward into the world. It's being impacted by our own perception of what we're capable of. So also then, as a grant writer, listening to other grant writers, being in this space of funding for nonprofits, I have seen the systemic struggle that organizations as well as grant writers are experiencing. So again, it's not a funding problem. It's not just, although it is a capacity problem, but when we dig deeper, there are layers underneath that capacity that are constricting the ability for a nonprofit to fund itself. And then also, I have more than 20 years of experience working in Fortune 500 companies. So guess what? I learned that language. I learned the language of corporate finances, corporate finance, corporate level performance and performance reporting. I was an analyst. I was a business analyst. I was a data analyst. I worked at the operations level, but alongside all of the other departments in the enterprise, right? So supply chain and accounting. I did a lot of work with accounting, because I managed the financials for the entire department. And what we call it in this particular business, it was the enterprise. So um, I managed the performance for all of our customers. We had over 4 million customers. I managed and processed all of that data and built the databases to do so. So before we had the automation that we have now, I built that automation and programmed it to extract the data that the business required, that business intelligence, so that it would know what its funding landscape looked like. So I developed the budgets. We're talking about billions of dollars. And so I also managed contracts and developed relationships with vendors and developed relationships again with the different departments like finance and accounting to keep a close eye on all the money. That is the language of the funder. That is what FundReady is going to help you understand. So, sitting on all sides of the table, I have a bird's eye view of where these disconnects lie between your nonprofit organization and the funding that you're asking for. So the disconnect isn't between you and the funder, not the way that you would think. It's not between you and the process or the approver of those funds. There's a disconnect between, there's a language barrier. The language that you're speaking in your proposal, the language that you speak through your website, the language that you're speaking through your social media as you demonstrate the work that you do. Most nonprofits on their website, they have an impact report. They have a section where you can go and learn more about the impact that they're having. That it seems like the larger organizations have more of that developed, but there's also an annual impact report and other annual reports that demonstrate the activities of the nonprofit as well as the footprint of the nonprofit. It shows who's running, managing, and leading this organization. So those are all of the things that help the funder to know more about you and to understand, is this organization and its activities, its impact, is that something that we want to invest in? Does that organization align with our priorities as funders, where we want to see our money going? That is what they're looking for. And they want to be able to trust that the money that they're going to invest, even if it's a gift, into your nonprofit is going to have the impact that they outlined in their financial reports, that their dollars were going to go towards, right? So if they're looking to impact communities in a certain metro area, and maybe they want to impact education, or they want to impact medicine, health and wellness, or they want to impact literacy, and they're saying we're going to donate uh, $5 million to improving literacy across these counties or whatever, maybe it's just across the nation or across the world. Some of them make investments across organizations, or they make investments in organizations across the entire world. So some of them are not just national, but they're global. That's what I was trying to say. I get tongue tied because I'm thinking faster than I'm speaking, but the knowledge is here. So um, they are looking to see, how do you align with their priorities, because they're the ones giving the money. So this funding a situation, really, the messaging, the language, everything starts inside of you. So it's before the application, it's before the relationship that you should be building with your funders, and through outreach. Yeah, you should be connecting with funders on a personal level to get to know them and to have them get to know you, because this is one of the problems. Here we see in that same survey, 1 out of every 4 foundation leaders felt that they were understood, that like their programs, that their intentions were understood by the nonprofits. And I think that's a huge that's such a small percentage, and it's such a big deal, because they're feeling like they're giving money. They're looking to invest this money in nonprofits who don't really understand who they are and what's in their hearts, which on their websites would be identified as priorities. What are the priorities that they're seeking to invest in? And so what I would say to that is, it's much deeper than funding. It's much deeper than the transaction, right? That we see. We look at it as a transaction. They don't look at it as a transaction. Nonprofits see it as a transaction, but funders look at it as an investment. There's a huge difference. And so what I think is happening with the foundation who isn't prepared, who doesn't have a handle on grant readiness and capacity building, is that there's a disconnect between the assignment that you have, which is your organization, the mission that you carry, right? Um, the 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 mission that you're bringing forward is the assignment that you carry, right? And so there's a disconnect within you around trust that the resources are going to show up to support the mission, to fulfill the assignment that you have. Your heart's work, it's an assignment. You are assigned to a certain group of people to help them with certain needs, right? So then your mission, my mission, is to whatever that mission statement is, to make sure that you're able to successfully bridge the gap for that population, for that demographic. But the belief that the resources are going to show up, there might be a disconnect there. And that would be anchored in, do I believe in my mission? Of course you do. But a lot of times we feel like it's so big, it's so much bigger than us, that we're not worthy to carry the mission to success. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a grand mission. The assignment is huge and it's so much bigger than you. That's why you have a board. And sometimes what happens is you shrink back as a leader and you feel like this is too big for me. I can't carry this. And maybe there's a fear of being seen fully because there's some vulnerabilities in there that haven't been addressed, right? And so you feel like if you show up, you're going to be criticized, you're going to be judged. I'm telling you the truth. This really is, the lack of funding is often a mirror for some personal challenges that haven't been overcome yet. And that's what we're going to do. Fund Ready isn't just about helping you get the money. It's about helping you break down the walls, break down those obstacles that are standing in the way of you receiving the funding, of being fully resourced, of having capacity maturation, right? Maturing in your capacity building to the degree that you can have a well-oiled machine in your operations, where if you take a week off, everything still runs smoothly. Nothing's going to break. The organization's not going to be in crises because it's fully resourced. And resources, financial resources are what allow you to have sufficient human resources, sufficient technological resources, or technological support. It allows you to have the automations that you need so you don't have to lean so heavily on human resources. Yes, you need a human to um, manage that, to push that button, to tell the automation tools what to do. But a human is going to save, you're going to save your human resource probably 75% of their time because of the automation. So when you have funding, it allows you to make better use of the resources that you do have. And it's just all around good. So I got a little bit off track there, but let me just get back to this particular slide. I was talking about, the disconnect between um, the assignment and the resources, right? The mission and the resources, the mission and the trust that it's going to be fully supported by those who have the power to support it. That is an internal messaging issue. That is an issue with internal messaging, something that needs to be cleared out. This disconnect is what shows up on paper, right? When you fill out an application for funding, when you put together a grant proposal that is saying to the funder or the foundation or the institution, we're asking you for funding. Well, that disconnect that's inside of you that also exists in your board is going to show up in the proposal. It's going to show up as, this is not a clear, I don't have clarity around what this organization does, or I see what they do, I hear what they do, but I don't understand how they get there. I don't see a clear pathway from uh, the vision, the mission, and the impact, and or the cost to make that impact. If we invest a certain number of dollars, how many families or individuals or lives are going to be changed, and in exactly which way? That is what they're looking for. So if you're not able to fully own um, the assignment, if you don't see the value, your value, you may not see the real value. You may not be able to articulate the value of your organization. I think that even if you don't see your value, you know the value in your organization and you know the value in the work that you do. But when you don't see your own value, then you have a difficult time translating that organization's value into dollars, into a proposal that will get funded, something that they will invest in, because ultimately they're investing in you. And if you don't feel worthy of that investment, then the organization is not going to be invested in at the level of which you're requesting those funds. So if you're asking for $500,000, but you don't feel worthy of stewarding $500,000, that's a good example, then you're not going to be able to obtain that $500,000. So if you don't see your own value, if you have not reconciled your own worth as a leader, you're going to struggle to plan for enough for your organization. You're going to struggle to ask for enough. You're going to struggle to allow your organization to experience the success that you are aiming to achieve, that you are aiming to achieve for the organization, because the organization's success is intertwined with your own. The organization's identity is intertwined with your own. That's an important thing to note here. And it's really hard to face our own internal structures of lack, right? It is, because it's a painful thing to go into, but when we can't face it, then we can't plan for what we actually need within the organization, right? Because there's a barrier there. There's something that we don't want to look at. And so when that is the structure, the problem, then we're not asking for what we need fully for the organization. Even if we're asking for $500,000, have you planned for where that $500,000 is going to go? Because they're looking for that. If you say I need 500,000, then they're going to be looking for a budget that supports what you are asking for, right? What happens is a lot of organizations will say they need this large amount, whatever the amount is, but they don't have the documentation to back it up. And that shows that there's a lack of stewardship. But the lack of stewardship is deeper. We're back to identity. Do I feel worthy enough to steward the $500,000? Do I deserve to hold and manage that? Do I deserve this at all? So again, the identity of the leadership is intertwined with the identity of the organization, of the nonprofit. So this is why that 1 in 4 foundation leaders feel understood. All of this is the reason why, because if the nonprofit leader is struggling with identity, is struggling to understand what they're asking for, then there's a good chance that it's asking a foundation for money. They're asking the wrong foundation. They're asking for money from the wrong funder, because that funder is funding different priorities altogether, if that makes sense, right? So it all goes hand in hand. You know thyself, understand who you are, understand how you show up, how your organization shows up, and do the work of demonstrating not just to the funders, but to yourself that you have the internal capacity. You have the capacity for stewardship, and you have capacity for $500,000, for $1 million, for $2 million, whatever that number is that's going to bring your vision and your mission to the point of maximum impact. So I say here, nonprofit leaders, they get disconnected from the mission because of financial crises. That's another situation. When there's a financial crisis, because of all of what I just said, say your nonprofit has been going for a while, but because of the cycles of financial lack, you find yourself in a crisis. Well, what begins to happen is you lose sight of the mission, because you're trying to get enough money to keep the doors open at times, or through different seasons and cycles. So you start to maybe um, break away from your core values, the integrity of who you are and what you do, because you need to get money to keep doing it. So that becomes a problem. That also shows up in the proposal. Um, this is part of the reason why when you're applying for money out of crises, well, when you're applying for money, you're getting denied. It's because you're applying out of crises. You're applying out of survival mentality, And the funder is saying, well, you don't know us at all. You don't understand what we fund. You don't understand what we do here. You're just an applicant that's asking for money at that point, and they're looking for organizations to invest in. I wrote about this in an article on LinkedIn on my FundReady page. I have a newsletter and I have an article. I believe the title is How to Think Like a Funder. You can find it, look it up. I will try to I'll give you a link to my LinkedIn page and you can see the things that I've been writing about. I haven't written anything recently because I've been writing so much in so many different spaces to cover all that we've talked about, right? So there's the spiritual, psychological component. I'm an author and a writer in that space as well. And so my hands are in many projects, and I'm also bringing FundReady to the world as a platform. So that requires a lot of focus. I'm doing the same thing that all of you are doing, which is demonstrating a an impactful service that deserves impactful funding. So find my LinkedIn page. I'll put the link at the end somewhere, and you'll be able to find the article and some other articles that I had written that are going to be very useful to you as a nonprofit leader. I know we're going to be looking at the hard stuff. You know, nonprofit leaders, I know you don't have a lot of time on your hands, but if you invest time on the back end or in the operations on the back end, including in yourself, that is going to go a long way to you experiencing, realizing success in the organization and in the demographic of the people that you serve, right? There's going to be great success for those who rely on you. So the question now is, have you shown up in a way that allows anyone to truly understand you authentically? Because I feel like this presentation alone is going to do that for you. It's going to give you the same permission that I had to work really hard to give myself, which is to show up authentically, to show up knowing that when I show up as myself, I'm not going to come under fire. I'm not going to come under, judgment and criticism. And you might, but it doesn't matter, right? It's working that fear out of your system so that you can show up authentically. It's not about not being criticized. It's not about being perfect. We have been led to believe that if we don't show up perfectly with all of our things together, with everything, appearing to be perfected, like myself, I am doing this presentation from the walk-in closet that I transformed into a temporary office for now, because I am in a transitory state. I'm in a transitional place, bridging everything together as I spoke of, to realize the things that I have out there, right? So showing up authentically in the world where everything is um, in this bubble of illusory perfection or illusory perfectionism. It's all fake. It's not real. In this day and age, the way to get through anything is to go into the belly of the fish, go into the tough places, the hard places, the painful places, and confront all the fears and walk boldly in authenticity, because that is what authenticity, that is what the funders are going to be looking for. They want to see you, what you do. They want to get to know you, who you are, what you do, how you show up in the world, how you show up for the community, because that's what they're funding. Ultimately, that is what they're funding. They are investing in the impact that you are making, and they don't want to see a fake person. So, are you able to let people see you, to see your mission? How did we get here? To see and be a part of your vision, and to really understand your why. Sometimes there's so much vulnerability just in that alone that we don't want to show it. I've been there most of my life, right? Because we feel like we did something wrong. There's fear, there's guilt, and there's shame around the experiences that we were forced to have. But you know what? Those experiences have brought us to this place where we get to add so much value to the world. We get to create so much positive impact to help others who are going through it, to help others who are where we used to be. There's there's a gem, there's a diamond in the experiences. There's a diamond in the lack. If you are right now feeling like, that's you, the person who couldn't show up authentically because of fear of judgment, fear of criticism, fear of rejection, fear of abandonment. I'm letting you know right now, you have permission to be authentic, because all that does is keep you in a prison, and it's not a joyful place. It's not a joyful prison. It just looks pretty. I don't want to be in a pretty prison. I don't want you to be in a pretty prison. So allow everything, to be seen, even to yourself. Allow yourself to see where maybe you have failed to show up for yourself, failed to show up for your organization, even by limiting its growth opportunities. Funders are not they're looking at outcomes. They're definitely wanting to see what outcomes are being had. What impact are you making, right? But they're looking to see this in the proposal. They're going to be able to read through what you do say, what you don't say in the proposal, and get a clear understanding of what's going on. And this is why also, this authenticity piece is why building relationships with funders is going to be extremely important. I remember speaking with a grant writer, it was last year, it wasn't that long ago. And she's a seasoned grant writer. She's been doing this work for a couple of decades, a little over 2 decades, I believe. And she told me a story about two clients that she had. One client refused to, well, the grant writer had suggested that she call the foundation and to build a relationship with the foundation. Let them get to know her, and vice versa. And she just refused to do it. She felt like her program was so good that they should want to fund it. And so it was the attitude of, this is what I pay you for. You write the grant proposal and submit it. And this lovely grant writer, she told me that she wrote for two clients asking for around the same amount of money. And the other client had no problem with relationship building with those that they were seeking funds from, or that she was seeking those funds from. And so the one who, let's say the difference between the two was like $100,000 versus $1,000,000. The grant writer said, I did the same amount of work for both. I invested the same amount of time and energy, and they both paid me the same amount. But one organization got 10% of that amount, and the other organization got 100%. That's the that's the I have a leadership assessment form that I created for you all to help you with this. And I think on the front of the form I put, are you the 10% leader or are you the 100%? And that's what I was talking about. So take the leadership assessment to just see where you fit in the leadership mindset around your organization. Who are you as a leader? How do you show up as a leader? The link for that assessment is going to be also at the end of this presentation. I want you to take that. It's just for you. It's something for you to sit with. And it's very, very useful. So the question is, what's really blocking your funding? Based on the things that I just talked about, there are some internal blockages. That is what I've come to recognize, not just in you, but in me. I had to walk this hallway myself. I walked down the corridors of, limitation, but I opened all the doors to find out what is limiting. What experiences have I had in the past that has wired my belief system for limitation? I had to do that work. It was hard work, but I'm able to bring that here to assist and support all of you through the FundReady ecosystem. So just, look at what's blocking you. You've got these fear-based blocks, the fear of criticism. I spoke about that, the fear of judgment, the fear of failure, the fear of exposure, right? The fear of being seen as a failure, and the fear of rejection, being rejected because of that lack or those character flaws. They're not really flaws, but someone in your past, in your the younger years, led you to believe that you were flawed. So you had to do all that you could to not uh, show up flawed, show up with lack, show up with needs, yada, yada, yada. So, but look at these three columns. We've got a fear based column, we've got this ego based column, and we've got the avoidance column. When I think about the 10%, organizational leader, she had a lot of pride. She exhibited pride. Her pride was fear that was wrapped in authenticity, and it was operating as safety. That pride was there to keep her safe. She said, "Our work should speak for itself." That was her demonstrating her fear to show up for herself, to show up authentically. Like, I know what that's like. You put you channel everything that you have into the work, and the work is amazing. It is. And there's a fear that people will judge you. So you put the work in front of you so that the work becomes a buffer. The work is amazing, but you are amazing. And so, you know, that fear of criticism and judgment leads to perfectionism. I know for myself, I always thought that perfectionism was just the way that I was. I didn't realize it was rooted in all of those, mischaracterizations of my personhood. So, it's part of what's blocking us from being funded. It's blocking us from being seen as one who's ready to be funded. Then you've got avoidance. That same leader was avoiding making those connections, avoiding being put in the position to be judged and to be criticized. And so handing it off to the grant writer and saying, "You deal with it," is like saying, that's another buffer, another layer. Someone else goes out and gets the funding. Someone else shows up and asks for it because I don't want to be rejected. I don't want to be judged. I don't want to be viewed as whatever. I don't want to be criticized. I don't want to be rejected and abandoned. And that would also reflect back to a person an affirmation or validation of what they believed about themselves. So it's an abusive cycle. And it's not the fault of the person who's having the experience, not at all. But it is a cycle of psychological abuse, mental abuse, um, and spiritual abuse that's stealing your destiny. It's diminishing your capacity and not allowing you to fully show up in the world and show up for your organization. So it's really important to note that, none of these are character flaws. They're not. They're survival strategies. These are the things, um, the responses or reactions that we built to survive. And they're patterns that we learned because the spaces that we navigated in our younger years were not safe. They did not allow us the space to be safe in our authentic self, right? So they weren't safe for authentic expression. That is what that was. That is what that's about. And that is one of the things that greatly impacts our ability to show up and to ask for funding from an authentic place. Trust me, I know. um, those mechanisms, they helped you then. They helped you in your state of survival, but they're working against you now. You're not there anymore. You are doing great things. You are um, having an impact in the world, and the impact that you are having or desiring to have requires greatness. It requires more funding. It requires more self-development and growth. It requires, so we're not just dealing with capacity building for the organization. We are dealing with capacity building for the leader. Do you have the capacity to hold something bigger? Do you have the capacity to hold more money? Do you have the capacity to hold um, the employment of your team on your shoulders? Because sometimes, I know for me in my business, that was a fear. It was like, oh my gosh, all these people are depending on me, right? And um, it was heavy to feel it because I had the fear of failure kind of programmed into my system, and it was like, I can't let the people down. So what happens sometimes is we limit we just limit ourselves, right? We keep the container small. We limit our ability to have a greater impact. And it's like robbery. I call that spiritual robbery, but we're going to save that for my other work that I do, where I deal with breaking bloodline bondages. So that's generational bondage work. I'm mentioning it here because to me it's important. I'm just going to pin it here so you can, when you look me up and you reach out to me and you email me, you want to know more about those things, I will help you with that. But if you get the book that I mentioned here, the Reboot, um, organizational or transformation for your organization, um, that is an entry point as well, because this is about breaking off of you as a leader all of the erroneous beliefs that you're holding on to that's limiting your capacity and your capacity for funding. So when we do this work, it requires great vulnerability, and I am giving you permission to be fully seen. You don't need my permission, but I'm giving it. I'm giving you permission to be fully seen. However you show up, wherever you are in your organization, wherever you are as a person. Sometimes it's hard to show up as the hero in an organization if you feel like you're failing in your personal life. If you feel like you're saving, you're putting yourself out there to save um, people on the street that are addicted to drugs, or that are dealing with a certain type of um, bondage, but you have an offspring that you haven't been able to save, that can make you feel like an imposter. That can make you feel like um, you're not able to really do what you say you can do because you haven't been able to do it for someone that's closest to you, someone that you love very much. So don't let that stop you, because that is not the truth. The experiences that we have set us up for the greatness, set us up for the destiny work, set us up for the assignment. We don't fail anything. We can fail ourselves by not doing the work, by not uh, reflecting on what is left to be done inside of us. If we avoid, then we're failing. Yeah. If we choose not to look at the elephant in the room, and I don't mean like in that scenario that the elephant in the room was you weren't able to save the person that's closest to you. It's everything is internal. Whatever it is that we're experiencing, that we're perceiving, and that's being reflected back to us, it is a mirror for what we're holding. So we have to learn to let go of some things. And so you have the permission to be fully seen. You have the permission to show up as your authentic self. You have the permission um, to feel all the things that you need to feel. You don't have to show up perfect, or show up like you've got it all together, or show up in any way that's different from what is really, truly, honestly there, right here, right now, for you, within you. You don't have to mask anything. That's what I'm saying. And so even when we're masking things, then in the proposal, we're masking something there as well. It's something that can be seen in your write-up for the reader, for the audience that is um, wanting to invest in you and in your organization and into your programs and your impact. And as you see here, I couldn't ask you to walk through something I have not walked through myself. I have been through the most when it comes to all of these things. I've walked down all of those hallways and I've looked at everything. I leave no stone unturned when it comes to getting answers to the questions that I have. So for myself, the moment I stop hiding behind my own expertise, I have a lot of expertise, acquired knowledge, not that it was taught to me, but I learned. I'm a fast learner and I feel like I can do anything. I was just afraid to show up. And so, yeah, authenticity is not a soft skill. It truly is your most fundable asset. It is a requirement, especially in this day and age. It is necessary. We are in the age of illusion and the age of AI, the age of hmm, false perfectionism, and we don't need that anymore. We don't need that. We don't. I won't say we don't need that anymore. We don't need that. This is the way that you and others like you and myself are going to stand out in the sea of false perception, um, false or illusory presentation. I think the authentic one is going to be the one that's different now, right? In the past, it was like, oh, this over here, this is different. Now it's flipped. Everybody looks alike. Everything looks the same. It all feels the same. This presentation that we're walking through, I built this because I like what I build better. Like it connects more with who I am and the message that I'm sharing. So authenticity is the key. When we look at the infrastructure, because that's what FundReady is all about. Capacity building, building the infrastructure. Well, funders are not just reading your proposal. We talked about that already. They're looking to invest in aligned priorities. Does your program, does your mission, does your vision align with their greatest priorities? They are looking at your clarity. They're looking at your conviction. That's kind of what I just talked about. The conviction comes through in your authenticity. They are looking to see, do you believe in what you're building? Do you believe in yourself? Again, that's what we just talked about when we looked at that last slide. It's about just really showing up as you are. They want to invest in that because they know that you're taking a deep dive, a deep look. You're reflecting on yourself. If you're willing to look at yourself, you're willing to acknowledge where you need to develop. You're willing to acknowledge where your organization needs development and where your organization also needs to partner with other organizations to execute the outcomes that you have laid out. They love to see partnerships that is saying you don't have to do it alone. And we know that you can't do it alone, right? So when you have partnerships with other organizations, that strengthens your ask. If you didn't know that, now you do. So once again, I am Stephanie. This is just, a little bit of my background. I'm an author. I am an entrepreneur. I've worked in Fortune 500 companies. And I wrote Reboot, Organizational Transformation for Nonprofits. I mentioned that is going to help you. That is a tool for the nonprofit leader, but it's also a tool for your organization. So you can do the work. The way that I wrote it is the work is there for you as a leader. You can do it amongst your, with yourself, or you can do it amongst your leadership team. And then there's some parts of that book that you can do with your greater team. So there's some team building components within there so that you can spread the love and you can spread the authenticity and give everyone permission to show up as they are and to transform and develop, because when everybody does it, it just makes for a stronger organization. And I think that's really, really powerful. I've also written a book this is more on a personal side. It's called Covenant Breaking Prayers. It's on Amazon. You can go find that. This is about breaking generational bondage. It's very important work and it's near and dear to my heart because I do not want anyone in prison, imprisoned by the mind, imprisoned by the emotions, imprisoned by the things that have imprisoned our ancestors. So when we look at our lineage and we see strongholds there, and this will filter through to the demographics that you're serving. I think that all of the work that I do, not just the FundReady, the technology stuff, but the entire ecosystem and my personal work. So Covenant Breaking Prayers aligns with my podcast on Substack. It's called Unveiled Truth and Breaking Bloodline Bondage. So Unveiled Truth, Breaking Bloodline Bondage. This is about ancestral generational bondage. And I'm currently writing two books that I'm finishing up the first one, The Dethroning Fatherlessness, How the System Replaced God with Government. And I have the framework laid out for the snake's head because they go hand in hand. I'm really writing them both at the same time, but I'm investing most of my time in dethroning fatherlessness because that is a part of the snake's head. So the snake's head, breaking the soul level of financial covenants that keep you broke. This will also be something that is going to help you as a leader of your nonprofit to, because you're helping people, right? I imagine that nonprofits that are helping communities and families within communities with economic mobility, you're going to want to have these tools in your arsenal because this is deeper than what we see at the surface. This is so much deeper than having a hard time in life or having a difficult time in life for those that you are supporting. This is a system. The challenges that people face in these communities. When I say communities, I mean the collective of families. The challenges that we face are systemic. And not only have things gotten harder, but the guardrails have been removed and the support systems have been removed, or diminished. Those systems of support that were in place for a good while to help manage and support individuals going through a tough time, they have been eradicated in a lot of communities, a lot of metro areas. And so it's sort of designed for the fall, right? And people need help, not just materially, not just with housing and food. They need help on deeper levels to break the bondage internally that is upholding the system and keeping them trapped and imprisoned within it. So here you can see, now you can kind of see where my personal, my mission, my vision, what I stand for, who I am, blends with my technical background. I do have 20 years working in more than 20 years at this point, but working in a lot of companies from General Motors to Ford to Chrysler to Harley Davidson to Google Fiber, DTE Energy, and I worked as an analyst on different levels and as a contract administrator. So I had multifaceted roles. I accomplished so much. I learned so much in those spaces. And of course, my time as an entrepreneur, which I now am still. So here are the three doors. These are the pathways. I don't know if it's three different pathways. It's kind of, as you can see by my graphic, one kind of rolls into the other. But the first thing I would like you to do is to take the leadership assessment. It's everything that's free. I'll start there. That is free. You can go to the link fundready.io/leader assessment. And there's a QR code on the next page, so you don't have to write it down. But the leadership assessment is going to help you understand what's blocking your momentum as a leader. You're going to get a personal readiness score, and I believe that it's an evaluation, like the results of the evaluation, and you can get a download, and I believe it also sends it to your email. But you'll get a downloadable PDF either way, and it's just kind of gives you something to look at and to sit with. You'll get a summary of the results as well. It is really beautiful. I worked on that. I developed that a few days ago, and I just love it, love it, love it so much. I think it's going to help you, and I believe there's also going to be a link to the book reboot that I've been mentioning with the evaluation results. And then the second pathway, where it says build your foundation, what you can do is go to the FundReady.app /starter kit page. Now here, there's two things that is happening here. You're going to take the grant readiness assessment, right? This is assessing your organization's readiness, the capacity to be funded. Are you ready to be funded is basically the question there. Now this is a 62 point assessment, which is similar to the leadership assessment. And you're going to get a downloadable PDF of your results and a summary of the results. And then you're going to get access to a starter kit. It's I set that up to be automatically sent, but if it doesn't, it's okay. I'm going to follow up with an email because when you do the assessment, I'm going to receive an email of your assessment results, and I will reach out to you and make sure you have that starter kit. And the starter kit is going to give you, I think it's about 30 something pages. I designed that starter kit myself from start to finish, and I grabbed some resources for you, like some grants that you could practice with. It also contains three myths to around grant writing, three myths around why your proposals are being rejected. And then there's going to be some information about the workshops, which rolls into number three, explore the workshops. So I offer a few workshops that's going to help your organization and meet you where you are. The first one, even though these are ordered differently, the first one really, the low hanging fruit, is an AI powered workshop. This is a 90-minute workshop to teach you how to use my favorite AI tool to get you grant ready now. There is a deep urgency right now. Maybe you have a proposal that you need to do. Maybe there's a deadline, like there's an RFP process. There is a deadline coming soon, and you want to apply because you really need the money, and you just want to get that underway, but you don't have the help, you don't have the resources, you don't have the knowledge, the know-how, the insight. Then this 90-minute workshop, it's kind of like a starter, but it can get you there. Not only will it help you with getting where you're trying to go now, it's still going to be a part of your capacity building framework. So just think of it like a layaway, like a little tiny deposit on a larger workshop. This will get you what you need right now immediately, but it doesn't get you the capacity building per se, right? This is not where you're building and learning and growing with me step by step over weeks. This is, I need help right now, and then we'll deal with the long-term strategies later. That's how I set that up. So that's the low-hanging fruit, and I offer that workshop at only $49 because I want to make sure that everyone has access, everyone has an entry point, and everyone can get started somewhere so that nobody has to be left out. Um, and then there's the core four. That's a 28-day sprint. We do that over 2 weekends, and we're dealing with the core four is the belly of the fish. We're really dealing with that which the funders are actually investing in. They're investing in you, but it's the programs that you've put together, the programs that the programs that you developed that create the impact for the demographics, the people that you help. So the core four, that's really what they're funding. So that workshop just deals with the most important um, aspects of the grant proposal for a nonprofit, because you've got to get the logic model, you've got to have theory of change, you've got to have a fully developed program, you've got to have a budget that aligns with the program. So you've got to have that. That's the center of your grant proposal, because what's on the end is the narrative. The end cap is the story and the narrative. And in the beginning is all of the administrative and foundational stuff, what your organization is built upon. So the most important thing, I think, for the funding is the core four. If you don't have anything at all, the core four is where I would start. The 12-week accelerator, this is complete capacity building. This is just like if you were to hire a consultant, not a grant writer, but a consultant on retainer that's going to help you with capacity building, with strategy planning, and grant writing. So you could hire a consultant and pay. It's not cheap at all for that 12 weeks when you hire a consultant. But this, I will walk with you, a group of nonprofit leaders, for a fraction of the cost, and you're going to get that capacity building. You're going to get that knowledge that you get to retain on site. That means instead of what happens when you hire on retainer, maybe every year you might have to bring a consultant in to review all of that. Because this is your living library of all things, whatever your organization is called, all things FundReady, so that you are always, it's like a living, if you were a small business, this would be your business plan, your operations plan, your marketing plan, and everything as a living document, not just something you put together and use when you need to apply for funding. This is proof of life. And so the 12-week accelerator is going to give you that. It's going to help you build something that lasts. It has eternal value and it lives within your organization, and you don't have to rely on an outside consultant or person to come in and get you where you need to go. So I'm going to, in that 12-week, that covers core 4 and like the 90-minute AI powered workshop. So all that and more is built into the 12 weeks. So you've got ongoing value there. And let's see, those are the 3 doors. Those are the 3 starting points for you as a leader for your organization. And these are the QR codes that I see one of them might be covered, but I'll make sure you get this resource. You can always email me. I'll give you links to everything. If you find me on LinkedIn under FundReady, you're going to find all of my materials there. You can go to the website, FundReady.io. That's my main website. And then FundReady.app is sort of the technical, it's the website where I'm going to have a demo of the FundReady platform. I'm working on that right now, currently building that site. By the time some of you see this, that site might be up, but it's going to be the demo site. So you just kind of get a look and feel for what FundReady as a platform, as a SaaS, software as a service platform, is going to be able to provide. So in lieu of that platform, the workshops are doing the job. And so you don't miss out while you're waiting for the platform to be built. When the platform is built, um, you have everything you need to be unstoppable as it relates to, well, for your organization and your programs and your operations and everything, plus the funding. You won't have to rely on a consultant or a grant writer ever again, ever again. You will not have to pay someone outside of your organization to um, help you become resourced. So hopefully you've had a chance to click on these QR codes. I want you to know this. I said it before. We're in the time of where authenticity is shining again, because um, the world is just filled with illusion. It is filled with fakery. I'm gonna use that word right now. Fakery. It is. And everyone trying to present a polished story because they want to be funded. Even if it's not a nonprofit, businesses are looking for funding or they're looking for customers. Um, Coaches are looking for clients. Healers are looking for clients themselves. Everyone is showing up as wanting to be the fully healed solution, the fully the perfect solution to the problem, when that is not really the case. We learn as we go and we grow as we go. So you don't need to compete with illusions out there for this funding, right? Because that puts you in a place where you feel like you're in a constant loop of needing to keep up with what's happening out there. You don't need to do that. You need to stand firm on what you believe in, stay anchored in your authenticity, stay anchored in your core values as an organization, as a person, stay anchored in your clarity, in your mission, and let that permeate through all of your messaging. Let that authenticity permeate through all your messaging so that it does not change. Your messaging doesn't change. Your core values don't change. What we'll be doing as within this ecosystem, but within the workshops, because even the platform is going to, the way that I've designed it, it's sort of like me distilled into a platform, asking the kinds of reflective questions that make you think about why you're experiencing what you're experiencing, even in your organization. So it's going to help you build capacity in the organization, but it's also going to help you build capacity internally as a person, as a leader. Across the board, this work is going to help you find all of the internal subconscious blocks, and it's going to help you reboot your belief system. That's what it's about. Reboot. It's when I wrote Reboot, it was around 2016, 2017. I think I put the finishing touches on it in 2018. And I wrote it as a personal manual, a guidebook for doing just that, right? Finding internal subconscious blocks and rebooting your belief system so that you could experience your reality differently, experience it the way you want to, instead of being bound to an old pattern that you don't want to be bound to any longer. What I did was I transformed that book into an organizational manual. It was always on the roadmap. I always planned to do that. And I finally got a chance to do it. So that's what that book is. And that's how long ago I wrote this, and I've been dreaming of this. So you'll reboot individually, right? You can reboot as a team. You're going to reboot as an organization, because it's really going to move you forward. The FundReady ecosystem is going to supercharge your organization, your impact, and just it's going to make you shine. Even if you don't want to shine, it gives you permission to shine, just as your organization shines. Here is this is what the book looks like. And you can find it on Amazon. The QR code is also on this page. And I want to thank you all for being here with me, and for, hanging in there for the hour, because everything that I shared with you is what I've walked through. It's been a long journey. It has been a difficult one. It was so hard to walk down the halls of, fear, guilt, shame, rejection, and abandonment to get here. I've been holding on to this for so many years. It is insane. And but what I've done while facing the fears is continue to write, continue to build the frameworks, to build the platform, to build the tools, so all of you can get there faster. So once again, thank you so much for being here. And I really hope to see, like, the call to action, what I'm asking of you. I really hope that you show up for yourself and your organization, and to be a part of one of these workshops. I really, really, really can hardly wait to help you um, really expand your impact, to help you not have to depend on external things and people to get you where you want to go, and to help, express the greatness that is within you, and the wonderful impact and the abundance of that impact that can be had. Um, I want to help you with that. I hope that was a complete thought. There's so much to be said, and I'm so excited, because this liberation that I'm presenting you with is my liberation too. Thank you for being here. Reach out to me. I'm not sure which platforms I'm going to post this. So all I can say is I will provide the links with this video wherever it shows up. Y'all have an amazing day, and I hope you're having a wonderful start to this year. And I wish you well in achieving your goals, attracting the finances to do so, and making monumentous impact in your communities. Have a great one.